So good to have now Tom McCabe joined me from the Freedom Foundation, not Tom Arnold. We've been talking about Tom Arnold. Tom McCabe, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Hugh, how are you?
Good. Welcome, and tell everyone what the Freedom Foundation is, and then let's talk about the Janus case, because lost in the Kennedy retirement is the significance of this major decision yesterday.
The Freedom Foundation is a think tank, basically, but we consider ourselves an action tank that is devoted to helping union members leave government unions.
And why did it get started, Tom? And by the way, its Twitter handle is FreedomFDTN, at FreedomFDTN.
Why did the Freedom Foundation get started?
Yes.
We started in the 90s because we believe that government unions are going to destroy the free market system in the United States, bankrupt cities and counties and states, unless we are able to reduce their sphere of influence in the legislatures around the country.
And this is, by the way, the same argument that Larry Arnn makes, that once you allow government employees to unionize, they begin to drain the public fisc at a rapid rate, as has happened. So what is the importance of Janus yesterday in your view? Where do you put it on a 1 to 10?
I'd put it at an 8, probably. I mean, I think other people are talking probably 10, but I put it at an 8 because there's still a lot of work to be done. The unions will fight to keep every member they have and keep those dollars and keep that political influence, and it's up to groups like ours to help those people leave the union.
To summarize Janus for the audience, no matter where you are in the United States, if there's a public employee union, it collects agency fees in 22 of those states. Agency fees come regardless of the political point of view of the person being drawn. The public employee union spent $65 million in the 2016 cycle, up from, I think, 48 the cycle before. What do you expect in this cycle, Tom McCabe, public employee unions to spend?
I think you're going to see a reduction in what they spend politically because they're going to have to do what other businesses do. They're going to have to now market their services to members to see if those members are willing to join. They can't force them to join any longer. And so they're going to have to make a business decision. The decision is, do we want to survive or do we want to keep giving money to politicians?
Now, what happened when, for example, Wisconsin, agency fees were outlawed? I believe that's what happened up in Wisconsin in the last decade.
The Wisconsin example is a good one, except there were other things that happened that year. For instance, Scott Walker also instructed government agencies to no longer withdraw dues from people's paychecks, from government workers' paychecks. And obviously that is not part of the Janus decision. So there's still going to be in liberal states like California and Washington and Oregon, the 3 states in which we operate, the governors there are going to still be taking dues out for the unions.
So how does a Republican public employee implement Janus in their own life? Do the agency fees just go away magically, or do they have to opt out? What do you see happening now, Tom?
If they have signed the union contract, which usually they sign once a year, they do have to send something in to opt out. And the opt-out forms actually are available on a website that we created called optouttoday.com. And I think we have 150 unions on there. So if you're a member of a union and you want to opt out, you can go to that website, click on the forms right there, and you can fill it out.
What kind of money are we talking about? Tell the audience what we're talking about. When you sign that optouttoday.com form, how much money do you add to your paycheck?
Let's just take a teacher, Hugh, in my home state of Washington. Teachers in Washington, starting teachers, pay $1,100 to the Washington Education Association, the union.
Whoa. Really? That's remarkable. How much do they get back if they opt out?
$1,100.
That's better than the tax cut.
It's a super deal, yeah. Particularly for a starting teacher who's making $45,000.
How do they stay alive, Tom McCabe, in the aftermath of Janus? I just don't know how they stay alive, because nobody wants to pay that amount of money for what everyone. I don't want to say everyone. Some people are union enthusiasts, but honestly, I've talked to so many public employees that just think the union are people who are cutting coupons and sitting in their office and showing up occasionally at rep hearings.
I think they stay alive. This is unfortunate, but I think they stay alive by breaking the law, ignoring the law, setting up opt-out schemes, which we've seen up and down the West Coast, where they make it very difficult for people to leave. They cheat, they steal. We even had one SEIU employee, Service Employees International Union, at a deposition tell us that he was a marketing agent for SEIU, and he said, what I needed to do was get somebody on the phone to say yes. And if they said yes, then they were in the union. So he'd call them up and say, hey, do you want to reverse your opt-out and get back in the union? And they'd say no. And then he'd say, do you want me to stop calling you? And they'd say yes. And he'd have that conversation taped, transpose that conversation, and then had quote, proof that they had said yes, they wanted to rejoin the union.
Wow. And so now, obviously, people are going to get smarter about this because the market is very sensitive. $1,100 is a lot of money. And so people are going to get they got to pay health insurance premiums. They got to do all this different stuff. What do you think happens, and what's the next step in the legal strategy? Having prevailed on Janus, what does the Freedom Foundation do next?
I think those very things. We have to attack them when they lie and when they cheat to members, and we have to be we have to make sure we categorize and look for stories like the one I just told you so that we can do that litigation. But I agree. I think they'll have a 10% reduction right off the top. And then if we do our job and other groups do their jobs, we could reduce union membership in liberal blue states by 30% by 2020.
And when that happens, down comes the contributions. The politics begin to escape from the heavy hand of public employee unions. And I got to tell people, they may not understand this. They are, in California, they rule the Golden State. They just own California.
Yeah, they can do anything they want in most liberal blue states because they are the largest contributors to the Democratic Party and to liberal causes.
Are there more cases headed to the Supreme Court that will increase the freedom of people who work in public employee represented union workspaces?
Yes, there are. Yes, there are. In fact, we're bringing one that's called the Fisk case that attacks what I just talked about, the opt-out schemes that the union set up to make it difficult for people to leave.
What kind of a ruling does it seek from this new Supreme Court? Will it seek an obligation to get an affirmative statement of opting in writing?
We do that, and it also will rule that the opt-out schemes are unconstitutional.
Well, they are. I mean, it's just such an obvious imposition on a person's freedom of speech and freedom of association to dragoon them. Remember the old press gangs that the British Navy used to do? They'd go into town and impress you and take you off to sea for the rest of your life. That's a public employee union, right? The press gangs. So after Janus yesterday, what was your mood? Did you feel like you got to the top of the mountain, or just another plateau?
No, this was a happy day for people in the conservative movement. This was something that we've been seeking and looking forward to for a long, long time, and obviously we were very, very overjoyed by it. But now today, the day after, we seek to go to work. We sent 80 canvassers into the field this morning to talk to teachers in their homes about the opportunity they now have to leave the union.
That is so great. Tom McCabe, CEO of Freedom Foundation. Press on. The Twitter foundation is Freedom FDTN, and you can just Google Freedom Foundation. You'll find that. And one more question. What's the opt-out address? What's the URL for the opt-out?
Optouttoday.com.
Optouttoday.com. If you're stuck in a public employee union, opt out today. Thank you, Tom.